Hey guys, can you get an injury and come back stronger than you were before the injury? Absolutely. And today I'm going to tell you a story personally of what happened to myself, as well as give you some pointers around injuries. And at the conclusion, I hope it gets you ready if you currently have an injury or if you've had an injury that keeps nagging you to be able to get out of that. And if you're healthy, I encourage you to watch this because at some point in time, some type of injury will come out if you continue to train. So guys, I'm not trying to be a pessimist here. Injuries happen. At times they can come from us doing something silly, and at times they come from us doing exactly what we should be doing, except an injury occurred. So at that point, the first step, what in the world should you do? Well, if the first step when you hit an injury, you should ask yourself, should I continue training? Now, most of the time, guys, a safe bet is no, right? You feel something, you feel a twinge, you feel, something that didn't feel right. It is very wise to stop training, to go and tell a coach if you have one, and start the process of, okay, what just happened here, right? There are injuries that when they happen, all of a sudden everything starts to tighten up, and whether you want to continue training or not, it may not let you. And then there are injuries when you feel it, you could keep pushing through it, and that typically is the wrong answer. Now, back in, I think it was 2013, 2014, I had one of the worst injuries of my athletic career. It shut me down. And it was in the middle of a clean session, and it kind of snuck up, kind of came out of nowhere. There was no one lift, no one moment where it was like, oh, caught that wrong. No, it started to feel tight, and then it felt tighter, and then all of a sudden it was stabbing pain. And if I would try to clean anything heavy, my leg would just tuck. It would try to get out of the way. I had no control over it. So at that point, I didn't have the opportunity to choose whether to keep training or not. It stopped me. So, okay, you've had this injury, you've decided to stop training that day. Now what? Now the question is, should you go see a doctor? And in some situations, you might not have to. Again, injuries happen at different severity. A minor tweak and you have a coach who's seen this type of stuff before, a little bit of rest, some remedial work, you could be right back at it. Now, there are a lot of injuries that are over coaches' heads. And at that point, if it's over your coach's head, it's over your head, you should go see a doctor. I'm a huge fan of physical therapists, huge fan of chiropractors, huge fan of orthopedists when they're needed. Now, finding a doctor that you trust is key. And I'm a huge fan of multiple opinions, okay? So when you go and see a new doctor, one of my favorite questions is to ask them about the referral policy. And what a referral policy is it just means as we work together, if your treatment doesn't seem to be giving us any result, at what point do you refer me out and where do you refer me to? And if the doctor can't answer that question, that's a red flag in my opinion. Now with my hip, I immediately went to the doctor. I knew it was something that absolutely wasn't right, and I had a big meet coming up. So, I went to a doctor that I'd already met, that I'd already worked with, and we went after this thing aggressively, right? In about 2 weeks, it was apparent that that big meet wasn't gonna happen. It just wasn't responding. And at that point, I started to get some multiple opinions. I ended up seeing, I believe it was 5 different doctors, and I'm extremely happy I did. I learned something from each one of them. However, it was fascinating because 4 of them had told me it was for sure surgery, right? And then one of them said maybe. Now it turned out in hindsight, the maybe was right. And I'm not sure about you, but I'm not in a hurry to try to get under a scalpel in any operating room, okay? So at that point, you've identified a doctor, now you're injured, and it's time to build back into the gym. What's that look like, right? This is where having a coach is vital, or also having a doctor who understands training at a level to give you guidance and advice. What movements should you be doing? What ranges of motion should you be staying out of? What areas are you trying to strengthen? What motor patterns may need some work and some correction and some strengthening? Now, I was extremely fortunate to have found a doctor who also was versed in strength conditioning, and he helped guide me through this process that took 24 weeks. 24 weeks, guys, and 6 of those weeks were rest. And to be truthfully honest, I could have done some more upper body stuff, some light cardio stuff, and maybe I did a little bit, but in hindsight, looking back, I mean, the memory is a little foggy. I don't think I trained all that much. I really rested quite a bit. This hip had it popping and clicking and had me crouching on one leg to get into the bottom of the fridge. It really blew me up. And just wanting to get the inflammation out of there through rest was vital, was key to get back into the gym, because none of the treatment was working as long as it was so inflamed. So once we got that inflammation out of there, we started working together. We started strengthening different motor patterns. My right glute, my right foot, the functionality of both of those was very muted. They weren't working as they should have been. And through a process, we were able to strengthen, turn those areas back on, and in 24 weeks, I was back up to 85% of my best numbers. Now, at this point, I did go and see a surgeon. And I wanted to go see a surgeon because 4 doctors told me this is an open shut case of surgery. So I figured, well, I'm still going to go to see the surgeon and let him have the final say, right? Now I went in there and it was fascinating. We sat down together, he reviewed my hip, and afterwards he was very confused. He didn't think the reports made much sense because at this point I was back up to 85% of my best numbers. And he showed me the x-ray and the MRI, and it really highlighted that I didn't have anything genetically genetic disposition that would put me at risk of a labral issue in my hip, and the labral tearing or fraying that the MRI did show, 80% of people have that just living life. So what I asked him at that point was, can we get injured, or can we something change in our life that changes our movement pattern? And because I was lifting heavy weight through a full range of motion with the Olympic lifts, inflammation built up and it gave off symptoms of labral tear. And he got a big grin and he said, every day, absolutely. He goes, however, most people don't want to spend 24 weeks to correct it. He said, go on, go do what you want to do, go lift. And he goes, and if it happens again, you can come see me, but I wouldn't do surgery on your hip. It never happened again. And what I hope this video, and what I hope, I'll link an article that I wrote about this video as well below. What I hope they give you is, if you're suffering with an injury or if you've been injured, to realize you can come back stronger. You absolutely can, right? And if you've not yet had an injury, to know when it hits you, have patience with yourself. Give yourself some kindness. This can be an opportunity to come back stronger than you ever were. So I'm wishing you guys all luck. I hope you guys like the article. Ask me questions below. I would love anybody out there who's hurting. I would love to get in a discussion, in any way that I can to provide you support. So good luck to you guys, and until the next video.